Stay tuned because next up is Village Properties Realtor and host of The Hop. That's Home Ownership Podcast. Here to tell us all about real estate in Santa Barbara.
Welcome to The Hop. This is Charels Allen, Realtor at Village Properties in Santa Barbara, California. My great friend and co-host, Patty Teal. I'm doing wonderful today, Patty. How you doing?
I'm doing well too, David. Thanks for asking.
Good to hear. We got cloudy skies here in Santa Barbara. Looking ahead, we got low 70s, just a little bit of sun, a little bit of cloud. So it looks like a beautiful week ahead.
Is it supposed to rain, David, or is it just a cloud covering?
Oh, just a little bit partly cloudy. No rain in the forecast.
I see. I got it.
What's cool is it looks like the South Swell is building. So if you are looking to have some fun this summer, maybe you have to head down south or a little bit north, but could be some waves.
I know you surfers will be happy about that.
They'll be happy for sure. And then in terms of interest rates, we're at 6.5 for 30-year jumbo and 6.75 for 30-year conforming. So not too much of a change since last week.
Right. Just kind of hanging out at the same levels.
Just kind of hanging out. And then in terms of the statistics, we got 31 new listings, 15 price changes, 21 that closed, 36 that went pending, 13 back on the market, and 6 coming soon. So again, a low amount of new listings, still a huge increase in pending. So we went over the new listings, so to say. So a little bit taken aback from the supply, but a big number of 15 price changes and 13 back on the market. So that's almost half new listings, so to say.
Wow. So again, you've explained before when we have price changes like that, it generally means that it didn't sell and now they've reduced the price for the most part.
That's correct. So I know when we're those last few years, we're having price changes were usually price increases and very rarely it was going down. So we are seeing homes staying on the market a little bit more and them adjusting the price accordingly to try and get more activity.
Yeah. And I don't know if you know the exact number of days, but what you guess is the average amount of time it takes to sell a house these days?
It's really going to depend on this quality of the house, the price, of course, and where it's located. So we are still seeing houses sell right away, depending on those factors. And then otherwise, you're looking at a couple weeks, maybe a few weeks, and it's really going to come down to adjusting to the market once you see what the activity is going on.
You'd mentioned last week, David, that you felt like for larger properties, not maybe mansions, but anything over 2 to 3 bedrooms or having 2 to 3 bedrooms and that were rentals, that the prices were coming down a bit. And you were wondering if that would lead to landlords then selling their properties if they weren't getting such an extremely high rent. Is that continuing?
That could very well be the case. We haven't really seen that yet where they're turning them into listings, but we have seen some people that were doing long-term renting turn those into Airbnbs. So it is going to adjust. So if the Airbnb stops making enough money, then maybe, they will end up selling it as well. Or like you're saying, if they're not getting those absorbent rents, maybe it's easier for them just to sell it and move on to the next thing.
Yeah, I know you'll keep us posted on that and keep an eye on whether the market is changing at all in that regard.
Yeah, it's definitely interesting to watch and it's something to look at. And then in terms of like what we're talking about in terms of price changes, if your home comes on the market and it's not really getting an activity, it's not really getting any showings, you're not really getting very many offers, that means you're probably 10% away from where the price should be. And if you're getting showings, you're getting some nibbles, maybe people are saying they're going to write an offer, but they're not. You're probably closer to like a 5% difference from what the price could potentially sell at. So that's always good to know. And so if a home comes on the market, let's say you're at $1 million and you're not really getting an activity, you probably should be closer to 900,000. Because that's just kind of the mindset people have. If it's close enough, they'll make an offer. But if it's too high, they won't even waste their time. Someone may come in and think it's worth like 890, but at $1 million, they're not going to put in an offer at 890 right away.
Well, that's a great formula to keep in your mind or to know about. And how long would you say you wait Like if you don't receive any offers or you don't have any nibbles within the first week, the first 2 weeks, how long do you hold off?
The market's pretty hot, so to say, in terms of people looking. So I would say at least a week you wait. And then if you really want to push to see how long that hypothesis is working, you want to wait 2 weeks. But the longer you stay on the market, the more stale it gets, so to say. And that just changes everyone's attitude related to it.
Right, right. What great advice. And so, David, I thought we could turn our attention to the fur babies at home. And if you've tuned in lately, you know that David has started a new business in addition to his real estate. He sells organic dog treats. They're called Chowdees, CHOWDEES.com or double E. I wanted to hear how that business is going, David.
It's going really well. I mean, everyone's giving us great feedback and we're loving what we're doing. It's definitely a passion project and helping more animals and potentially opening up people to treat their dogs better.
Well, what I love about them is that they're all natural and that they're made from liver. And before I learned this from you, I didn't know that dogs do best when they have a percentage of organ meat in their diet.
The organ meat really helps them with all these complex nutrients that they typically are synthesized in through processed food. And whenever you're synthesizing or adding nutrients back into foods that's processed, it's not going to be top quality nutrients like you would get it from the source.
I can tell you, my dog just loves Chowdees, and I don't think it's my imagination. He seems just a little friskier. Out of the blue, he'll just start doing zoomies around the house. He's about 5 years old, and he just seems so very happy. Of course, it is a bit annoying when he comes in the kitchen and starts barking for the Chowdees, and I know exactly what he wants.
Yeah, it's kind of like what Mango does for any food. He just meows and meows and meows and meows until he gets his food. So
right. I go, okay.
It's cute, but it's very it's a lot.
I know. So I know also, David, we've talked about how a raw food or even a raw meat diet is so good for our pets. And I actually have never fed my dogs a raw food diet, but on your advice, I'm trying to kind of ease into a little bit. It just seems so odd to me to give my dog like a little bit of raw hamburger. So I'm starting very slowly. I think it's going to be a good thing. Can you talk about that a little bit more?
Yeah, I mean, essentially, if we think about it, if dogs can't cook, they can't really cook their own food. If whoever created what a dog was, they'd be doing a real mispurpose if they said, hey, we're going to make this living animal, but you can't do anything yourself and you'd starve and you'd die if you didn't have a human to cook food for you. So essentially, it goes back to that. They have to be able to eat raw food. That's just how they're built and how they're created. And by giving them raw, you're really maintaining the nutrients that are in those properties. So whenever you cook food or anything like that, there's always a compound change within the product itself. So if you cook it at high temperature, like the kibble that's made, it's really just processed and baked at a really high temperature. And that's how you get those hard kernels. You're losing a lot of those compounds and nutrients that are in the product when it's raw. And now they have to add those back in through other various compounds that may or not be organic or not. So they're basically just using whatever meat they can, cooking it, and then adding stuff back in when you're buying the kibble and stuff like that. That's kind of the solution to make it easier on everybody. You can have a huge bag of dog food and it can sit in your cabinet and it lasts a month. You don't have to worry about it. The raw food, it can go bad. You have to buy a certain amount. You have to do a little bit more planning. It may be a little more pricey. It may be a little more messy. But in terms of simplicity, you're giving the dog exactly what it should be eating. It can be potentially more beneficial for them, given that they get all the stuff without it being cooked off and the compounds changing.
Yeah. And what I really love about Chowdees too is that you can put it in a bag. I have a little small hammer. I chop it up on a chopping board and I put it as a topper on the food. And they just absolutely eat all their food that way.
Yeah, Bailey is the same way. She won't eat her food unless you throw some topper on there. So it's a great way if you don't actually give your dog treats, or if you're not like a treat person where you only feed them and you don't really give them extra treats. The chowdies work great to crush them up or break them up into smaller pieces and put them on their food. And if they have issues eating all day, or they only eat certain times of the day, or like you want to get them on a certain schedule, then that topper really helps. And it's beneficial just to have that on there if you're not feeding them treats either. So Bailey's one of those dogs that gets chowdies toppers every day.
Right. And I'm starting to do that as well as give my dogs their treats. So they love it both ways. So David, how would people order chowdies?
We have our website, Chowdies, chowdees.com, and everything can be ordered through there. We're trying to get some more events going. So if you ever are in a location where we're selling them, we're going to have an event calendar up as well. And we're looking forward to getting into potentially some retail locations around town in Santa Barbara. So if you don't want to pay for the shipping, then you can just pop into one of those stores and get them from there.
Sounds good, David. We'll look forward to hearing more. Have a great week.
Thanks, Patty. You too.